Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. It's part 4 of Ravening Hordes. This is the breakdown we're doing today of the 4 bad guy armies that are going to be available for Warhammer the Old World. We've already previously broken down the Orcs and Goblin tribes, the Warriors of Chaos, and the Beastmen Bray Herds. You can check those up in the cards up here, as well as I'm also breaking down today the Forces of Fantasy, which is all the good guy armies, all 5 of them. So we are doing an additional thing today, which is checking out the Arcane Journal Tomb Kings of Khemri. Now, it's at first sort of glance, it'll be easy to confuse these with army books or codexes. The previous editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, of course, 8th edition, and all previous editions had, well, actually not all, back to 4th, had army books such as these ones that would allow you to sort of expand your army list, and you required them to have the updated rules for your army. That is not the case in the Old World. You can perfectly play out of this book forever. And the communicated intention, although I don't know what the future holds, is that this book will be the army lists for the 5 or 4 in this case armies, bad guy armies in this edition of the game. What an Arcane Journal is additional rules. So it is 2 additional play types for the army. Think of them as armies of, well, they're called armies of infamy. Think of them as various like variants. Allowing you to take different mixes of things, potentially different allies, different characters, and different fighting formations, as well as a few additional units such as special characters and additional sort of like magic items to go with it for those specific armies that may be locked into that army type. So we're going to go through this after we go through the core list for the Tomb Kings. Now they are our one and only weird undead army in this book. And of course, the intention behind these reviews is I'm speaking as a person who's played Warhammer Fantasy Battle before. So if you're looking for like introductory knowledge, that's not so much what we're doing here. I'm trying to speak to people who are looking at collecting this army today, or may have armies from the past or some experience playing Warhammer as to what basing might look like and how it will sort of like generally play on the table and what I think about it. So the Tomb Kings of Khemri army list, this is one of the 2 armies that are going to be available at launch, and the complete range will be available as of, I think, today. Goes on pre-order, comes out in 2 weeks. So if you want those miniatures, they're in the army box along with the core rulebook. You'll need to buy this army list separately. There is a get you buy 1,249-ish point list to play in the box set. So you do have the stat lines for the models that you get in the box when you buy the army box. And you can just put it together and play if you want. But this book will give you your full army list for your grand army composition. Now, there are some required units in this army list. You have to have a Tomb King or Tomb Prince, and you have to have a High Priest or Mortuary Priest. And that's because people who play the Tomb Kings in previous editions will remember there was a thing where you had to have basically someone to raise the troops and then the person whose will was holding it all together, and that was the Prince or the King. And you have to have one of each of those things, but the level doesn't matter. So you could have a High Priest with a Prince, or you could have a Prince and a Mortuary Priest. Either one of those things, depending on how big a game size you're playing, you can kind of decide what you want to do. Now, in this book, there are benefits to having one or the other be your army general, as you have the Mortuary cult led by priests on one side, and you have a royal phalanx on the other sides, and they fight differently based upon who the general is. So those are the requirements. You can have 0 to 1 Tomb King or High Priest per 1,000 points on top of that, so you can't have more than that. And then Royal Heralds and Necrotechs are like your baby champion level guys and your little Lich Priests. Core choices, you have to have at least 1 unit of Skeleton Warriors and or Skeleton Archers. You can have units of Skeleton Skirmishers, Tomb Swarms, Skeleton Horsemen, Skeleton Horse Archers, Skeleton Chariots, and 0 to 1 unit of Tomb Guard or Sepulchral Stalkers can be taken as a core choice. Your special, which is up to 50% of your army, can be Tomb Guard, Ushabti, Sepulchral Stalkers, Carrion, and Necropolis Knights, which is the Sepulchral Stalkers with Riders. 0 to 3 Tomb Scorpions per 1,000 points. 0 to 2 Khemri War Sphinxes, not counting character mounts, per 1,000 points. And up to 25% of your army can be Necrolith Colossuses or Necrosphinxes. And 0 to 2 Screaming Skull Catapults per 1,000 points. And 0 to 1 Casket of Souls per 1,000 points. 20% can be mercenaries, and your allies, up to 25% of your army points can be spent on a single allied contingent from any of the armies of infamy. So you could have the army of infamy be your ally, which is kind of cool. So you could have like a mortuary cult inside of the other army. and then one of the following grand armies, everyone's suspicious. It's funny because in the end times, the Tomb Kings they didn't become good guys, but they were unwilling to let chaos win. In this one, Settra is very much the like conquering tyrant, and it's his story about trying to take over the rest of the world and turn it into like, this is kind of what leads to Nagash, Settra trying to take over the world. And for 25 points, of course, you can take a BSB. Monarchs of Nehekera. So Tomb Kings and Tomb Princes are adequately tough, as they've always been. Strength toughness 5, 4 wounds. Leadership 10 for the king and leadership 9 for the prince. Now, special rules, we're going to go through army special rules right here. Curse of Necropolis, which is if you kill them, you make a leadership test, you take wounds because they curse you as they die. Dry as dust, you're flammable. On a 4+, you take an additional wound every time you take a wound from a flaming attack. On a 1 to 3, nothing happens. So that's flammable. Dry as dust is... oh no, you are flammable, which means you take the second stuff. Each time a model suffers unsaved wound from a flaming attack, your opponent may roll a d6. On a roll of 1 to 3, it dies down. On a 4 to 6, the flames take hold and the model loses an additional wound. And then flammable is the one that makes you take damage from flaming attacks. Indomitable 2. Now, normally because you have the Nehekharan undead rule, you have the undead rule. So you have unstable, cause fear, you are unbreakable, and you also are immune to psychology, which means you don't take fear, terror, and panic tests. The problem with when you're unstable is every time you lose a combat, you take an additional wound for every point you lose by. Now with Indomitable, you take 2 less wounds because that person is... So if he's by himself and he's fighting and he loses by 3, he only takes 1 additional wound as opposed to taking 2 wounds. He's harder to just drive off. He has a Kopesh, which means that his basic hand weapon attacks have an additional -1 AP. He has My Will Be Done, which is his special command ability during the command subphase. This character can attempt to exert their will upon them, or upon those around them by making a leadership test using their own leadership, and if it's passed until your next sort of turn phase, the character, their mount, and any unit they've joined gain the following modifier. So either Forward to Glory is +3 movement, My Worthy Champions is +1 weapon skill, or Strike Like a Cobra +D3 initiative. And they're not cumulative. So using more than one in the same turn in the same fight has no effect. And then you regenerate on 5+. Now regeneration is an undead rule across the table. And it's going to be important when we get to the Lich Priest thing because they are the Hierophant. Everything has at least some level of regeneration. Regeneration happens after you take a wound or and like after any armor reward saves are made, you can make a regeneration save. But even if you do make that regeneration save, in this case a 5+, and same for the Royal Heralds, it still counts towards combat resolution. So you'll still have to suffer the penalty for losing by that much, even if you don't actually physically take the wound. And then unstable will then translate that into further wounds. And then Royal Heralds are your basic guys. So these are all on 25 by 25, so smaller base sizes than like a Chaos Warrior, but the sort of standard human infantry size now. Your Royal Heralds can, of course, take all the same kind of gear, so flails, great weapons, and halberds. They can be mounted, they can have 75 points of magic items, and they automatically have the Banner of the King. The Banner of the King, a Royal Herald, may be upgraded to your Battle Standard Bearer, and it replaces the Hold Your Ground rule given in Warhammer Old World with this version below, because you don't make panic tests, you're unbreakable. Hold Your Ground, friendly units with the Battle Standard Bearer's command range may reroll any failed leadership test. In addition, friendly units within the Battle Standards Bearer range reduce the number of wounds lost due to the Unstable special rule by D3. So they kind of become indomitable, which is cool. And then there's Swarm Protectors. Should a Monarch of Nehekera suffer hit within 3 inches of this model, you can transfer it to them and all of its effects onto this model instead. They're basically bodyguards. So the one you upgrade to have the BSB for an extra 25 points gets that cool Hold Your Ground rule, and then Sworn Protector is like, you stick them next to a Tomb King or a Tomb Prince, and they can bounce wounds. All right, Lich Priests. Now, you are the Hierophant for one of these. It's like a sub-general almost in the Tomb King list. And if they die, the army starts to crumble because it's his magic reanimating everything, and then the will of the prince or the Tomb King like commanding it. If they die, they're going to lose the Regeneration X rule for everything on the table with the Nehekharan Undead rule. So anything that's not a construct, basically, it's like has that special rule and it counts as undead, they no longer regenerate. In addition, they have to make a leadership test during the every start phase, and the amount they fail by, they just take that many wounds as if they were unstable. They start to crumble down and die. You can have a level 4, level 3, level 2, or level 1 Lich Priest. So the baby ones, the Mortuary Priests, are pretty cheap, but they can upgrade up to level 2, and it's standard 150 points of magic items. They also have the Arise special rule. The smaller a thing is, the more they can heal it. It's during the command phase they issue this command to 1 unit within 12. If they pass the leadership test, if it's a regular, heavy, or swarm type, it gets wizard level plus D3 wounds back. And it starts at the command characters and then command for a unit. So let's say you had a unit of skeletons that's down to like 5, let's say 2 guys. So its command group is only like a champion and a standard left. First, and there's a wounded hero in the unit. First, the hero will regain any wounds, then the command models would get put back, then the minimum amount of ranked models would come back on as you do this. And then the bigger the unit, so like light cavalry, heavy cavalry, or war beast, would get wizard level plus 1 back. If the unit's true type is monstrous infantry, it's just your wizard level. And then if it's anything bigger, it's only a single wound. So like a heavy chariot, a monster creature, a behemoth, or war machine. And then finally get from beneath the sands, you got some ambushers in this list. Most of the like weird, like creepy crawlies, like the tomb scorpions and the swarms and stuff, can ambush. When you do, you can make a command for your lich priests, and they can summon them within 12 of themselves, but not within 6 of the enemy, and they can't move or charge that turn. They can pull them out of the ground if they pass the test. If they fail it, then they just don't listen and they stay below the sand. And you get necrotechs. They're basically like your taskmasters. They're like champion level heroes, 25 by 25s. Everything is in this, if it's not a monster or something. They're also dry as dusk. They have eternal taskmaster though, and it's a command they can do. If they make a leadership test, then until the start of turn subphase, this character and any unit they've joined gets extra attacks plus 1 and hatred all enemies. So you can whip your fighters into like a frenzy. It's a cool upgrade character, and they can have 50 points of magic items. All right, mount-wise, you can have a skeletal steed, a skeletal steed. This is turning into like a full-on tongue twister. A skeleton chariot, a necrolith bone dragon, which is a new unit with that cool new model that comes in the army box, or a Khemri and war sphinx, and those are for Tomb Kings only. The big things can also be taken, a necrolith bone dragon for a high priest, but not a basic lich priest. And they can also have skeletal steeds, and the herald can have a steed or a chariot, but no mounts for the necrotechs. Yeah, they're basically just horses, but they're undead. So they have neck hair undead, which means they take wounds. Not that the combined profile would actually take a wound. All right, we're into your basic infantry stuff. So you get Tomb Guards. They've got Kopeshes still. They have Cleaving Blow. It's not quite Killing Blow. It used to be that like liches, or sorry, wights rather. So like any undead that was like a tomb or tomb wight would have white blades. These guys had a version of that before. Now they have what's called Cleaving Blow, which is just a no armor save hit. So as opposed to reducing to 0 wounds, so like you have like 2 wound cavalry or something like that they would kill. It just causes a wound with no armor saves, but you can still take ward saves. And then they can also take the drilled special rule, which means they can redress their ranks and they can always march, which is kind of nice, even though they're undead and they can't march anyway. And then they have the Nehekaran phalanx rule for +1 point per model, and that's the thing where they can, if they get driven back, they can just choose to not be driven back because they have shields, as long as they're not outnumbered by the enemy. Skeleton warriors, basic skeleton warriors, can have spears or light armor for extra points, and then for 1 in every 1,000 points can also have a Nehekaran phalanx rule and a magic standard. Skeleton archers, skeleton skirmishers, which is a cool new thing that I don't think you could take before. You can have your bowmen basically be skirmishing in units of 5 to 20. And then with Shabti, these are your ogre-sized models, still on 40 by 40 inch millimeter bases. 3+ unit size. They get hand weapons, ritual blades, and heavy armor. The ritual blade is strength +2, -3 AP, requires 2 hands and strikes last. So kind of like a weirdly, I don't know. It's not quite a great weapon. It's maybe a better great weapon. Great bows, if you take the bow units, a 30-inch range, strength 6, -1. They have heavy armor bane 2, so if they roll a 6 to hit, they're an additional -2 AP. And then multiple wounds 2 and volley fire. So they cause 2 wounds per hit, and they can volley fire because they're bows. The arrows of Asaph is another army special rule that all the archers will have, where they suffer no penalties to hit ever. So these guys always hit on 4s and they always hit on fires, like regardless of if they moved, if there's cover, whatever. They have seeking arrows that will go after the target. Tomb Swarms, 2 to 10 units. They're just poisoned, Nehekaran undead, dry as dusk. They regenerate on a 6, and they're skirmishing. Still on 40s. Carrion are still on 40s. They fly 10 inches. Skeleton horsemen on 25 by 50, so not on 30 by 60s. They don't get the biggie, like huge size bases. They can have, and they come in the army box too. Cavalry, spears, light armor. There's a neat thing where you can mix their unit, and same with the bowman and skeleton spearmen in the Arcane Journal. For 1 in 1,000 points, you can have a countercharging special rule unit where if they are charged by something that's not charging them from inside their movement range, they can meet in the middle and both sides count as charging. And they can purchase a magic standard up to 50 points. They get Close Order, Horde, Necromancy Undead, Regeneration 6+, Swift Stride, and Vanguard. Horde means that you get an additional +1 rank bonus, potentially. So even though they're usually capped at +1, they can have a +2 rank bonus. I believe the Skeleton Warriors also have Horde, yeah. So they can have a +3 rank bonus instead of just +2. Because there's supposed to be lots of them. Then we're looking at the Necropolis Knights. These are the riders on the Asps. They're pretty cool. Toughness 4, 3 wounds each. The Necro Serpent gets 3 attacks at strength 5. And they're on 50 by 100 mil bases, so old cavalry bases. Same bases they were on before, actually. So no need to rebase this stuff. They can have full command. The captain can take a great weapon and 25 points of magic items. They have armor hide +1. So even though they're just wearing light armor and shields, their armored hide gives them additional +1 to their saves. They get impact hits 1, indomitable 1. So if they lose by 1 less wound. They have Kopeshes, which means they get additional AP on their not mount attacks. And they regenerate 6+, and Swift Stride. Sepulchral Stalkers, same basic stuff, except they have their cool writhing tail attack, which is extra attacks D3. And then their Petrifying Gaze, which is an 18-inch gun, strength 2, magical attacks, multiple wounds D3, and you wound against their initiative instead of their toughness, because you're trying to get out of the way of the eye lasers. Skeletal Chariots, these are your basic chariot, which you get in the box set. So again, on 50 by 100, so the old chariot base size. And get these in big old units of 1+, as big a unit as you want to take. 3 wide gets you a rank bonus. And they have Horde, so they can get an additional rank bonus. Regenerate 6+, open order, which means they can ignore terrain. Impact hits D3, arrows of Asaph, so the shooters ignore the movement part penalty, and they get a reserve move too. All right, the Necrolith Bone Dragon. This is the big new mount, and the kit does make a Tomb Prince, Tomb King, or a Lich Lord, a High Lich Priest. He's an extra 200 points, and he's on 100 by 150 mil base, so big extra base, same size as the Hell Cannon. He gives you +1 toughness and +5 wounds, which makes you a big old toughness 6 if you are a Tomb King. He's got Close Order, Cloud of Dust, which is anyone targeting with shooting is -1 to hit because he's all dusty because he's old. And then we have the Wicked Claws and Breath of Desiccation as his extra weapons. Just he gets a -2 AP for his strength 6. And then his Breath of Desiccation is breath weapon magic attacks and multiple wounds 2. Strength 3 -2 save. And it can only be included in your army as a character's mount. Can't take it any other way. The Khemri War Sphinx, it's a behemoth on a 60 by 100. It still has its Envenomed Sting if you want to buy it as an upgrade, or the Fiery Roar. And you can have 2 additional Tomb Guard crew for 10 points each. Gets the Arrow Special Rule, Cleaving Blow for the Tomb Guard crew, a Close Order, Howdah, Indomitable 2, which means it loses by 2 less. The Howdah means it can take a character. Kopeshes for the Tomb Guard crew. Large Target, Nehacaran Undead, regenerates on 6, D3 stomp attacks, and causes terror. You get Strike First, Poison Attack for the Sting. You can make 1 attack with it. And the Fire Roar is a breath weapon at strength 4 -1. The Tomb Scorpion's on a 75 by 50. It used to be on a 50 by 50, so it's a bit bigger of a base. You can give it Ambusher for 5 points. It's got Killing Blow, Monster Slayer on its Decapitating Claws, and Poison Attack, Strike First for 1 extra attack on its Envenomed Sting. The Colossus is the War Sphinx with the body, basically, the big weird face. It's on a 50 by 50. Or sorry, the Colossus is the Bone Giant. My bad. I'm thinking of the Necrosphinx. Colossus is the Bone Giant. Paired Kopeshes, Close Order, Indomitable 2, Large Target, Nehacaran Undead, Regeneration 6+, D3 Stomp attacks, and does Timber like a giant, so it falls over and does like a Stone Thrower hit. And then Unstoppable Assault. During the combat phase of any turn in which it charged, every attack it makes that causes an unsaved wound allows it to immediately make an additional attack. These additional attacks also benefit from this rule. So technically speaking, with its 4 attacks at weapon skill 3, it could hit forever if you roll really hot. And then its Kopeshes are strength 6, -2 save, Killing Blow. The Necrosphinx is on a 60 by 100. It's got a Cleaving Blade, Decapitating Strike, and Heavy Armor. Decapitating Strike is a Killing Blow, Monster Strike last, strength 5. +5, so it's going to be strength 10. You get 1 attack with a decapitating strike, and the rest of your cleaving blades are just strength 5 with -1 in killing blow. But you're going to make 1 really cool monster killing attack. And then because you've got heavy armor, and you've also got regeneration 5+, you're pretty durable with your toughness 6 and 6 wounds. Swift Stride and Tear. It's got Soul Reaper. After deployment before this first turn begins, nominate a single enemy character. This is the soul marked by the Necrosphinx to journey to the underworld. This model may reroll any to hit rolls of natural ones made against the nominated character. Then we've got the Screaming Skull Catapult. It's just a 60 by 100 based war machine with regular 25 by 25 crew. Can have Skulls of the Foe. Skulls of the Foe mean that until the start of the next subphase, any enemy unit that was within 2d6 of the central hull of the blast after scattering suffer -1 of their leadership. So you penalize the leadership of the things that you hit by shooting their skulls of their foes at them. And it's a standard stone thrower, basically. 4 in the blast, 8 into the hole, -1 or -3. Does multiple wounds, D3 +1. And Screaming Skulls. Any unit suffers 1 or more unsaved wounds from this weapon makes a panic test as if it had taken heavy casualties. Now, last but not least, we got the Casket of Souls. This is another war machine, of course, but it's kind of like ridden by another Lich Priest. It has hand weapons, great weapons, and light armor for the 2 guards. Cleaving Blow, Covenant of Power, Dry as Dust, Immovable Object, which means it cannot go anywhere. It's placed on the battlefield during deployment. It cannot be moved at all. And then, of course, it has the Indomitable 2, so it loses by 2 less if it loses combat. And Hecaran Undead, Regeneration 5+, Skirmishers, Unbound Spirits, and Vortex of Souls. So it has the Covenant of Power. While within 12 inches of a Casket of Souls, friendly Lich Priests may apply a +1 modifier to any casting rolls they make. Additionally, any model friend or foe that casts a Bound spell while within 12 of the casket can get +1 of the casting roll. It has Unbound Spirits. If the crew of a Casket of Souls is reduced to 0 wounds, immediately roll a d6 for every unit friend or foe within 12. On a roll of 4+, they take d6 strength 3 hits with no armor penetrate or regeneration saves permitted. But you can make wards, and then it's removed from play. Basically, it goes all end of Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then as a Vortex of Souls, a Casket of Souls can cast the following bound spell with a power level of 3, which means it would benefit from its own to go power level 4. The first is Light of Death, casting value 7+. The target enemy unit must make a leadership test. If this test is passed, it suffers D3 strength 3 hits, each with an AP of -1. If, however, this test is failed, it suffers D6 +3 strength 6 hits, each with the multiple wounds 2 special roll with no armor regeneration saves permitted. So you just blow somebody up with Light of Death. Has a 36-inch range, and remember, it's bound power level 3. And then we've got Light of Protection with an 8+ to cast. Its range itself remains in play. While this bound spell is in play, this model and any friendly unit within 18 of the model gain a 6+ ward save against any wounds suffered. In addition, while the bound spell is in play, enemy units suffer a -1 modifier to rolls to hit against this model and any friendly models within 18. The light goes off, basically. However, if this model casts Light of Death bound spell, the bound spell will immediately expire. So it's one or the other in play at any given time. So a cool kind of army buff, but again, you got to pick the spot for it because it's going to be, again, on a hill, hopefully, and then radiating bonuses to your whole army. All right, so we got our magic item list. Then we've also got our bonus spells, and that's the Lore of Nehekara, which is your, you can drop your rolled spells for this, and you can take the Lore of Necromancy. So your magic items, magic weapons, again, a lot of the greatest hits from the old Tomb King's Army book in here. Destroyer of Eternities. It is a +2 strength, 75-point magic item with -2 save. Killing Blow, magic attacks, requires 2 hands and strikes last. So your initiative goes down to 1, but you don't really care because you're already initiative bad. Rather than attacking normally, you can scythe with it. If they do, the enemy unit they're directing their attacks against suffers D6 automatic hits, each resolved using the Destroyer of Eternity's profile. So you can just do D6 automatic hits with this thing, which is great. Killing Blow. Crook of Flail and Radiance. It's Monarchs of Nehekara only. It's extra attacks D3. Magical attacks requires 2 hands and strikes first this time, so you can go faster, go slow. You have Flail of Skulls. It's a +3 strength, -1 AP. Magic attacks, multiple wounds 2, and requires 2 hands. The model, I think, that just came out, it would probably be good for either of those two. And the Serpent Staff, which is Lich Priests only. It's magic poison attacks and requires 2 hands, but it's +2 strength and -2 AP. Armor-wise, you're not getting anything better than light armor because you're a mummy, and you're built-in regeneration. So you've got the Armor of Ages. It's light armor, but in addition, enemy units must reroll successful to wounds against the bearer. So stick that guy on a dragon, give him the Armor of Ages, and yeah, reroll your successful wounds against toughness 6. That sounds great. The Shield of Ptra, it's 25 points, and it's a shield. In addition, any enemy model that directs attacks against the bearer during the combat phase is minus 1 of their weapon skill. The weapon skill isn't great, so I don't know if I love that one compared to the Armor of Ages. Then you get the Crown of Kings for 30 points. It's Monarch of Nehekara only. During the command subphase, if they're not engaged in combat, they can attempt to resurrect the fallen by making a leadership test. It's kind of like a baby version of a rise. If it's past, Skeleton Warriors, Skeleton Archers, Skeleton Horsemen, or Skeleton Horse Archers that are within the model's command range recover D3 plus 1 wounds. The Collar of Shapesh is 25 points. It's a single use. When the wearer of the Collar of Shapesh loses its last wound, roll a d6. On a 4+, the wound is not lost. Instead, a single friendly model within the wearer's command range is removed from play as a casualty. Just die. Magic Standards, you get the Standard of the Cursing Word for 80 points. This is your big standard. It's Battle Standard Bearer only. At the end of any phase in which one or more models in a unit joined by the bearer of the Standard of the Cursing Word lost its last wound to an attack, the unit can make that made the attack must make a leadership test. If it's failed, the enemy unit suffers D3 strength 2 hits, each with an AP of dash for each model that lost its last wound. So the more you're killing me, the more wounds you might take. Icon of the Sacred Eye, you get +1 to your weapon skill. Icon of Rakaf, you get, unless making a charge move, a unit carrying the Icon of Rakaf may perform a single reform at any point during its movement. So you can just spin around. And then Mirage Banner for 20 points. You target them with shooting, you're -1 to hit, additionally to any other modifiers. Get the Cloak of Dunes. Anyone who is infantry can take this. The wearer of the Cloak of Dunes gains Fly 9. In addition, any enemy unit the wearer moves over during the remaining move subphase takes D6 strength 2 hits with an AP of -1. The Icon of Rulership is 35 points. Models whose troop type is Chariot only. This model doubles its unit strength from 3 to 6. In addition, any impact hits caused by the model have an armor penetration characteristic of -2 and magical attacks. Death Mask of Carnut, you cause terror. Enkel's Canopy, single use during the command subphase of its turn if they are not engaged in combat. This is an arcane item, so it's only for wizards. The bearer of the Enkel's Canopy may attempt to unleash its contents by making a leadership test. If the test is passed, all remains in play spells currently in play are dispelled, including those done by friendly wizards. A Heretic Jar, it's a single-use item. During the command subphase of their turn, if they're not engaged in combat, the bearer of the Heretic Jar can release the power held within. The bearer may attempt to resurrect the fallen using a rise twice during the command phase. And then a Scarab Brooch for 20 points. When using the From Beneath the Sand special rule, a summon unit can be placed in the battlefield anywhere complete with an 18 rather than 12. Then we're back to our special rules, which we already went through. And then the Lore of Nehekara. So you can, again, and this is a standard sort of like you randomly generate your spells. You can drop spells to take a signature spell. These 3 signature spells are all considered to be part of your list, in addition to the one from necromancy. So Jaf's Incantation of Cursed Blades is an enchantment for a 7+. You do it yourself until your next start of turn subphase. Any friendly unit that has a Nehekaran Undead special rule and that's within the caster's command range can reroll natural hit rolls of 1. That's a cool 7+ buff. Zar's Incantation of the Desert Wind. It's on a 6 or a 10, so depending on how high you roll. This is an enchantment of the self. If the spell's cast with a 6 or more, a single friendly unit that has the Nehekaran Undead special rule and is within the caster's command range gains the Reserve Move special rule. If the spell is cast with a result of 10 or more, every friendly unit with Nehekaran special rule and within the caster's command range can make a Reserve Move. And then Eusep's Incantation of Desiccation. It's a hex on a 10+, range of 15, target enemy unit. Until the end of the turn, they are -1 of their strength and toughness characteristic to a minimum of 1. If the spell is cast, any other hexes on the target immediately expires. You can't stack it. So we're also going to take a look just before we jump into the Arcane Journal at the Necromancy lore, just so you guys are familiar with it, because it is, of course, pretty important to the playing of an undead army. So Dwellers Below is your signature spell. It happens in the combat phase, in combat, because it is a assailment spell. Cast on a 7, place a small blast template at the center over the unit that's engaged with the caster, and then once placed, the template will scatter D3 plus 1 inches. Any enemy model whose base lies underneath the template's final position could take a strength 3 AP-hit, so you have to roll, because like a stone thrower. Deadly Cabal is your first spell. It's on a 10+, and it's an enchantment. Until your next start of turn subphase, the caster and any unit they've joined gain a 6+ ward save against any wounds suffered that were caused by a non-magical enemy attack. In addition, while the spell's in play, the affected models gain the Fear special rule. If they already have the Fear special rule, they gain Terror instead. So your Tomb Guard, all your Tomb Kings are going to get Terror because you already caused Fear because you're undead. Unquiet Spirits is an 8+ magic missile. The target enemy takes 3d6 strength 2 hits with no armor saves permitted. Woof, word regeneration saves can be attempted as normal. Spiritual Vortex, cast on an 11+, and is 12-inch range, remains in play. Place a 5-inch large blast template. So its central hole is within 12 of the caster, and while in play, the template does not move and is treated as dangerous terrain. While within 8 of it, you're -1 leadership and can't use Inspiring Presence. Curse of Years, 10+, 15-inch range. It's a hex. Until the start of the next start turn subphase, the target unit suffers -1 modifier to their movement, weapon skill, and toughness characteristic. So no dying from it. If the spell is cast, the effects of any other hex go away. Spectral Steed, so like you can't have like in the old days where you had 5 hex spells on the same unit. Spectral Steeds that remains in play. This spell can only be target friendly characters whose troop type is infantry. You get ethereal and fly 10. And then Spirit Leech, which is an 8+, 18-inch range hex. Until the end of the turn, the target enemy unit has a -2 to its leadership characteristic and cannot use Inspiring Presence. And you can cast it on enemy units that are engaged in combat. So tons of debuffs in the necromancy lore, obviously, and your healing is pretty much baked in. So you don't need a Dance Macabre. You don't need a oh geez, what was the healing spell that all the undead factions had? Oh, it's gonna bother me now. Van Hell's Dance Macabre was the movement spell, and I don't remember what the raising spell was, but Raise Dead was basically the signature spell that everybody had to know. All right. So that's it. That's the core list. And again, these 2 books are going to cover you. You don't need to have this thing. What you're going to get in here is tons of additional background on the cities and the characters like sort of in play right now. What's going on with Settra and the fact that he's a freaky expansionist and all he wants to do is take over the world. Why that's important, because the subset of the map here, we see that he is definitely coming into conflict with the Bretonnians and the Border Princes. We get a bespoke sort of scenario. And 2 different armies of infamy. So the first one we have is the Royal Host, and the second one is the Mortuary Cult. So what we get is we get a changed composition list. So you have to have a Tomb King or Tomb Prince, and you can take Mortuary Priests and Royal Heralds. Don't have to have any Lich Priests, which is kind of cool. Core is at least 33% of your army points have to be spent on at least 1 unit of Skeleton Chariots, because they love their rides. 0 to 1 unit of Tomb Guard or Tomb Guard Chariots, because you can take Tomb Guard Chariots in this, which is kind of cool. And they give you like conversion ideas for everything in this book too. And then Skeleton Archers, Skeleton Infantry, Cohorts, and Skeleton Cavalry Cohorts. And what a cohort is it is a mixed unit between, so you could, out of the army box, make this. It's a mixed unit of archers and spearmen. Up to 50% of your points can be spent on Tomb Guard, Skeleton Skirmishers, Horse Archers, Ushabti, Necropolis Knights, Tomb Guard Chariots, 0 to 2 Tomb Scorpions, 0 to 2 War Sphinxes, not counting mounts, and then 25% can be spent on Screaming Skull Catapults. You see, you get a lot less constructy stuff, no swarms, and you're not going to be able to do a rise, right? You're not going to be able to heal your army. So you got to kill, 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 because you're not going to be able to do so much like bringing stuff back to life. You get Grind Them Down as a special rule. These are in addition to the rules from Ravening Hordes. You don't lose your army special rules when you play this army, you get these on top of it. While within the General's command range, friendly units with the Chariot troop deck can reroll the dice for determining impact hits. So your D3 impact hits get to be rerolled. The language of the priests. The General, it's funny, that is totally a Mummy reference. The General of the Nehacaran Royal Host must be a Tomb King or Tomb Prince. For 35 points, this character may have the Arise special rule and be a level 1 wizard. So you don't completely miss out on having a wizard, but it's going to cost you 35 points and you're only going to be level 1. If so, this character knows spells from the Lord of Necromancy and must also be chosen as the army's Hierophant, even if it does not have the highest level of wizardry in your army. A wizard in the special role may wear armor without penalty. So your Mortuary Priest is going to end up being your Hierophant otherwise. And then lay in wait, 0 to 1 units of Skeleton Skirmishers per 1,000 points may have the Ambusher special rule for free. Masterful Outriders. Oh no, sorry, the Mortuary Priests do have a rise, don't they? I'm thinking of the Necrotech that doesn't. So you do get a rise no matter what. You just get it on level 1s and 2s. But if you take the language of the priests for 35 points, then you count as being the Hierophant, which is actually probably a good idea because it protects you then from being assassinated and losing your Hierophant just because you're a baby character. You get Masterful Outriders. 0 to 1 unit of Skeleton Horse Archers per 1,000 points may have the Chariot Runner special for free. It's interesting that Mortuary Priest isn't 1+, but I guess it makes sense because you can take Language of the Priest. You wouldn't have to take one. And then Steadfast Discipline, a unit with a special rule can volley fire during a turn in which it moved, or while performing stand and shoot. So you get cool archery. And then the unit types for this, and we'll do the special characters last because Settra's in here and so is Nakaf. You can take a skeleton infantry cohort, so it's warriors and archers. You have to have 10 plus of each. So it's at least 10 archers and 10 warriors. The warriors have to have thrusting spears, light armor, and shields. The Royal Host archers have to have hand weapons, light armor, and war bows. And then your special order is that you're going to be a motley crew because you're mixed. When writing this, writing your muster list, a skeleton infantry cohort must contain at least 10 Royal Host warriors and 10 Royal Host archers. The Royal Host warriors always occupy the front rank, pushing past any Royal Host archers to get there if necessary, such as when the unit turns. So your archers are always in the back. And then you can have the Nehekaran Phalanx special roll for 10 points, which means you don't get driven back. And then you can take a magic standard worth up to 50 points as well. The Venerable Ushabti is something we'll come to in a second, but then we also have the Skeleton Cavalry cohort, where you have at least 5 units of skeleton cavalry, and then you have Royal Host horsemen, hand weapons, cavalry, spears, light armor, and shields, and Royal Host archers, which is light armor and war bows. And then same thing, your archers are going to be in the back, and your fighters are going to be in the front, and they push forward when you turn. And you get the motley crew. So I think that's very neat. You get these mixed units of stuff, and of course you can also take Settra the Imperishable, the Great King of Nehekara, for 445 points, strength 6 times 5. He's got the Chariot of the Gods, because of course he does, heavy chariot, and he's 100 by 150 base, so he's on a big base. He is unit size 1 and armor value 4+. He's got a Blessed Blade of Ptah, the Chariot of the Gods, the Crown of Nehekara, and the Scarebrooch of Osirian. His magic is a level 1 wizard, and he knows the lore of necromancy. He has Commander of Legions, Curse of the Necropolis, Dry as Dust, Flammable, Impact hits 2d3, Indomitable 3, Lord of Nehekara, My Will Be Done, Nehekara and Undead, Regenerate 5+, Settra Does Not Kneel, and Settra the Great. Commander of Legions is Settra gains the Arise special rule, and unlike other models of the special rule, may use it even when engaged in combat. He does not kneel. He must always accept a challenge unless Nakaf, the emissary of Settra, is engaged in the same combat, in which case he'll take it on Settra's behalf. And then Settra the Great is, if your army includes Settra, he must be the army's general and must be chosen to be the army's Hierophant, even if he does not have the highest level of wizardry. In addition, his command range is 18 instead of 12. Chariot of the Gods, impact hits count as flaming attacks and magical. In addition, when fielded with the Nehekaran Royal Host Army, this model may join a unit of Tomb Guard chariots as if the troop type were light chariot, even though he's a heavy chariot. The Crown of Nehekara, such as Will Be Done special rule, affects all friendly units with the Nehekaran Undead special rule within 6, not just the unit he's joined. He has a 5+ ward save from his brooch, and the Blessed Blade of Ptah is Ptah, I think. He's a strength user, AP -3, flaming attacks, requires 2 hands magical attacks. Any enemy model that suffers 1 or more unsaved wounds from the Blessed Blade of Ptah suffers a -1 to its hit rolls, both when shooting and in combat for the remainder of the game. And then we have his bodyguard, which is Nakaf, the emissary of Settra. He's like a souped up version of a royal, the bodyguard guys. He's got the Flail of Conquered Kings and light armor. He's got Killing Blow baked in, Indomitable 2, Herald of Despair, Regeneration 5+, such as Champion and Sworn Protector. The Herald of Despair is any enemy unit that's in base contact with him, or a unit that's joined must roll an extra d6 when making a Fear or Terror test and discard the lowest. He's Settra's Champion. Nakaf must always issue and accept challenges when possible. However, challenges issued by Nakaf cannot be refused. In addition, when engaged in a challenge, Nakaf strikes a killing blow if he rolls a 5 or 6 instead of just a 6. And the Flail of Conquered Kings is magic attacks, multiple wounds 2, and requires 2 hands. But its strength modifier only applies during the first round of combat, so it's strength +2 and -2 saves. And then we're on to the Army of the Priests, is the Mortuary Cult Army. And so its composition changes are, you have to have 1+ High Priest or Mortuary Priest. You can have 0 to 1 Tomb Prince or Arch Necrotect per 1,000 points, because it's a new character type, the Arch Necrotect. And then your core is at least 33% of your army must be Skeleton Warriors, Archers, Skirmishers, Horsemen, or Horse Archers. 0 to 1 Tomb Swarms can be taken as a core choice. 0 to 1 Ushabti can be taken as a core choice. 0 to 1 Necro Serpents can be taken as a core choice. So you can take lots of the constructs. Up to 50% of your army's point values can be spent on 1+ Tomb Scorpion per 1,000 points of Ushabti. Sorry, per 1,000 points. You have to have at least 1 Tomb Scorpion per 1,000 points. Your minimum of 2. And then Ushabti, Venerable Ushabti, Tomb Swarms, Carrion, Sepulchral Stalkers, Necroserpents, and Skeleton Chariots. 0 to 1 Colossus or Necrosphinx can be taken as a special choice. And then 33% of your army can be Colossus and Necrosphinx. 0 to 2 Screaming Skull Catapults per 1,000 points. And 0 to 1 Casket of Souls per 1,000 points. You can buy a BSB and then magic items. Any model within this army can purchase the stuff from the Common or Tomb King's magic item list. Your special rules. You're the authority of the Hierophant. A Mortuary cult army must include at least 1 Lich Priest as the Hierophant. The Hierophant or a Mortuary cult army must also be its general, even if they're not the character with the highest leadership. The Harmonious Incantations. If a Lich Priest within a Mortuary cult uses the Arise special rule, the number of wounds that get recovered are +1, so even like monsters get back 2 wounds. The Sepulchral Animus. Before making a casting roll, any Lich Priests within a Mortuary cult may draw upon its magical Animus of any nearby undead constructs. So basically you can cause wounds between 1 to 3 and add them to your casting roll to constructs that have the Swarms, Monster Infantry, Monster Cavalry, or Behemoth, or Monstrous Creature rule. So you can just suck the life out of those things. And then the Terrors below, any Tomb Scorpion or unit of Necroserpents may have this special rule for +2 points per model. When using the special rule, it's placed in the battlefield as a result of using From Beneath the Sand special rule. It may nominate a single enemy unit within 8, whose troop type is regular infantry or heavy infantry. The nominated unit must make a number of initiative tests equal to the unit strength of the unit. For each test failed, a single model belonging to the nominee is removed from play as a casualty. Basically, you like suck them down beneath the sands. And then let's take a look at the new character type, which is sorry, not Necaf. It is the Arch Necrotech. So he's just a basic Necrotech, sort of like core stat line, but extra wound. He's got 25 by 25 mil base still, and he's got the hand weapon, whip, and light armor. Going to take 75 points of magic items instead of just the 50. He's Dry as Dust, Flammable, Immortal Overseer, Kopesh, Nehekaran Undead, and Stone Shaper. So the Immortal Overseer means during the command subphase, the character may attempt to drive a single friendly unit within their command range to greater efforts with leadership test. They gain D3 initiative to a maximum of 10 if they pass. And then Stone Shaper, during the command subphase of their turn, if they are not engaged in combat, this character can nominate a friendly Necrolith Colossus, Necrosphinx, unit of Ushabti, or Venerable Ushabti within command range. Until the end, their regeneration is improved by 1. And then Skeleton Infantry cohorts, we already went through, but Venerable Ushabti are like basically weapon skill 5, so higher weapon skill. They got 3 wounds, initiative 2, 3 attacks each, 4 attacks for the Venerable Ancient. And their Ritual Blades are strength +2, -3 AP, require 2 hands and strike last. They get Close Order, Indomitable 1, Kopeshes, Magic Resistance 2, Nehekaran Undead, and Regenerate 6. Necroserpents are Monstrous Cavalry, 50 by 100, 2+ for their unit size, and you can just use the Necroserpents from the Necropolis Knights kit to make these guys. They have Lashing Tails and Venomous Fangs, Ambushers, so they get to go beneath the sands if you want, Armored Hide 1, Impact Hits 1, Indomitable 1, Move Through Cover, Nehekaran Undead, Open Order Poison Attacks, and Swift Stride, with Regenerate 6. And then Tomb Guard Chariot are basically light chariots, but they get Tomb Guard Crew, where you replace the crew models with Tomb Guard models. And they get Cleaving Blow for the Tomb Guard. Impact hits D3 +1, Indomitable 2, Kopeshes, Nehekaran Undead, Open Order, Regenerate 6+, Reserve Move, and Swift Stride. And the captain can take 50 points of magic items. You can take a 50-point banner too. So a cool elite unit of chariots. Your magic items, you can have the Blade of Antarhak for 45 points. And these are marked with an asterisk. They're usually available to certain people. So this one's a Royal Host model only. Strength +1, -1 AP and magic attacks. For each wound an enemy unit loses a result of an attack with this blade, the wielder immediately recovers a single lost wound. The Conqueror's Blade is also Royal Host, I believe. It is strength +2, -2 AP, killing blow, magic attacks, requires 2 hands and strikes last. While engaged in a challenge, the bearer of the Conqueror's Blade strikes a killing blow on a 5 or 6 instead of a 6. In addition, should the wielder slay the enemy general in a challenge, you get a bonus of 100 victory points at the end of the game. Oh no, it's anybody actually. It's not just the Royal Host. So that one's an anybody one. Facts, Blade of Justice. Facts, Blade of Justice. Strength, AP -1. Strength user, AP -1. Magic attacks and requires 2 hands. Infantry only. You get +1 attack for each rank an enemy unit the wielder's engaged with has. So basically you get the, not rank bonus, but actual ranks. So fighting goblins, this thing gets real good all of a sudden. And then the Staff of Aeons is 30 points. It's a Lich Priest and a Mortuary cult only. It's +2 strength, -1 AP, magic attack, requires 2 hands. Any model that's hit by this, model's close combat attacks, gets -1 its armor value for the remainder of the game. It's not cumulative though, it's just once. And then Magic Armor, the Royal Mantle, may only be taken by a model in a Necromancy Royal Host army of infantry. Remember, you can ally these in though. May be worn with other armor. The wearer of the Royal Mantle improves their save by 1 to a maximum of 2+. In addition, the wearer's might will be done. Affects all friendly units with Necron Undead within 6, not just the unit they join. So you get like a baby Settra. Warding Splint, it's a suit of heavy armor, which may be purchased by and worn by a Lich Priest, even if they don't have the option to have armor. A shield or barding. You get a 5+ ward save in addition to anything else. Amulet of the Serpent, so your first talisman. You get poison attacks. Relic of the Desert Sun. You're not subject to dry as dust and flammable for 25 points. The Royal Standard of Settra is 50 points. It can only be taken by a muster that includes Settra the Imperishable and or Nakaf. A unit carrying the Royal Standard gains the Hatred, Enemy Characters, and Terror special rule. The Sigil of Centuries for 45 points. All enemy units within 6 of this model suffer a -1 of their initiative. The Tapestry of Conquered Lands for 35 points. Any enemy standard captured by a unit carrying the Tapestry of Conquered Lands is worth 100 victory points, the Trophy of War. And Banner of Desert Winds, 30 points. Model's true type is infantry only. A unit carrying the Banner of Desert Winds gains the Vanguard and Reserve move. Special rules. Enchanted items, the Staff of Awakening. High Priest only. When the wielder of the Staff of Awakening uses the Arise special rule on a friendly unit whose true type is infantry or cavalry, they get an additional D3 wounds back. And the Orb of Petra. Any enemy unit, enemy model that targets this character or any unit they've joined during the shooting phase suffers additional -1 to hit. Then the arcane items, this is of course going to be for your wizards. It's single use, the Phazaract's Canopy. During the command subphase of this turn, if they're not engaged in combat, the bearer of Phazaract's Canopy may attempt to because it's a canoptic jar, may attempt to unleash its contents by making a leadership test using their own unmodified leadership. If this test is passed, place a unit of D6 +3 summon skeletons on the battlefield. Anywhere within 12 of the model and not within 1 of the enemy. And they are skeleton warriors, so weapon skill is skill 2, just standard warrior profile. And they have hand weapons and shields. Horde and Hecaran Undead regenerate 6+ in skirmishers. And they're not worth any victory points. Curse of the Weaver Wand for 20 points. It's a +1 to casting rolls when attempting to cast a hex. And then Tablet of Tahoth for 20 points. A wizard may purchase up to 3 tablets, each of which has a single use. Before making a casting roll, you can use any number of them. You get +1 to your results for each one. And note that it's not a modifier to the result of the roll. It does not negate a natural roll of double ones. And that isn't a modifier, and it does not negate a roll of double ones. And that's it. There's a color section, the cool bone dragon. Interesting that they put the 75 by 50 sideways for the scorpion. It kind of makes him fit better. But then they didn't put the Casket of Souls on a base, which is also very interesting. So that is our first look at a Arcane Journal to go along with, of course, the Ravening Hordes list for the Tomb Kings. And it gives us what to expect. So again, you don't need it, but if you want to play special characters, I think it's a cool add-on. And I appreciate that it doesn't invalidate this book. The last thing I want is to carry a gajillion books around. I like that it's optional. If I'm not using the Army of Infantry, I probably don't need to bring it with me. And if I am, then it's a teeny little slim softcover. It's not a huge giant like hardcover army book. So I'm excited about the armies of the armies of infamy inside these arcane journals because I just think they make the game more interesting and they let you mix and match units, take new cool magic items, and generally sort of expand your options. Where every army becomes 3 armies all of a sudden, composition-wise, and gets like a cool different theme. So overall, I'm excited. I think Tomb Kings was an interesting one to launch on. It makes the most sense from the point of view of nothing in it's available. Same with the Bretonnians. Nothing is in it, or that's in it, is available in AOS, period. So like, you can't really cobble these two together, so they kind of make sense to start with. And they are the most, from the old ranges, they are the most we only exist in, like unless you count the ghouls, the Bretonnians don't exist. And the undead unless like you count the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, which are kind of the AOS version of this, there's nothing that really crosses over. So I'm into it. I like the new Bone Dragon. I like the new miniatures. The skeletons are not as nice as the new, Vampire Count skeletons, but what are you gonna do? You can't get everything. And the theme's cool. I like the fact that they're just like these like conquering destroyers that will not take no for an answer, and that puts them firmly in the bad guy camp. So here it is. We've finished Ravening Hordes, my first 4 book reviews. You can check out all 9 of them up here in the cards, and check out the army that you're interested in for the old world. Big thanks for watching. We'll see you for the next one. Till then, I'm Ash. Have a great day.